live. We're on inverted A. It's preparing to live stream, so it hasn't done it yet.
Okay.
Goodness only knows what it'll look like once we get there, because it might say it's about something completely different.
There's a different inverted A that's not you. Inverted A press, that's why.
There's another inverted A?
But they're like something else. They're not I've never seen that before though. That's weird.
Well, I hope somebody's not stealing my business.
It looked like they were just posting videos in Malaysia. It didn't look like anything. Yeah. Okay, so I don't think it has anything. Yeah, so is the title of it books we are reading?
Yes, that's the title.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I have the right title before. I don't think it has anything. Yeah. Whoa. Okay, so anyway, let's see if I can share it or not. This account has a problem signing in. Okay, I got it. We can't sign in. So anyway, if I can't share, oh well. So what books are you reading, Aya?
Well, I'm always reading the Hebrew Bible because there's always something in there that is relevant. I am continuing to read Mammon and Manon. This book actually belongs to the late Pam Keyes. She let me borrow it, and I need to finish reading it, and then I need to find out who her heirs are so I can return it to them. Because she died during the period when I was trying to read the book. But yeah, it's kind of depressing, isn't it?
It is. I wonder though, just as a thought, like, well, once you contact them, you never know. They may decide that they want you to keep it, because sometimes people, I guess you'll have to contact them and see how they feel about it. You know, because sometimes I find out later on, somebody, they didn't really want the object. Like, I think about some of the things that my grandpa had, and I don't know what they did with all those things. Like, there was a Turkish coffee cup that my great grandmother had brought from Syria, and some figurines, and I think they just gave them all away. I don't think they kept any of that, because they gave all my grandparents' things away. So you never know. Like, maybe they want the book back, but maybe it will turn out that they'll say you can keep it, because maybe they have less of an interest in the topic. Just because we're related to people doesn't mean they're going to be as interested in what we're doing as maybe somebody who has, similar interests. That's all I'm saying. So,
well, I don't even know who her heirs are. They may not even be her family. So,
okay.
Yeah. So whoever she left everything to, and I don't know who, because she didn't have any children, and so I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm also starting to read this book, Captain Corelli's Mandolin.
Oh, interesting.
Have you ever heard of it?
I haven't.
Okay, it was recommended to me by someone that I know, that I was asking that person. I think it was in the time when I was writing Our Lady of Kaifeng, or maybe I just finished writing the first part of Our Lady of Kaifeng, but hadn't started writing the second part. And the question was, what genre does my book fit into? And this person's recommended that I read Captain Corelli's Mandolin. So I bought a copy, but then I never got around to reading it because they said it's probably the same genre as Our Lady of Kaifeng.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. But I liked Our Lady of Kaifeng, but it's interesting that book is the same genre. Okay.
Well, I don't know what genre any of my books are. I'm not very objective about genre. I have a with it.
Our Lady of Kaifeng parts 1 and 2, I would say, are pure historical fiction.
Okay.
Obviously, to me, 100% historical fiction. Theodosia and the Pirates 1 and 2 are definitely historical fiction. Vacuum County, it's kind of It's interesting because it's kind of dystopian and sci-fi feeling, but it's slightly political. I guess I would kind of like, I can't pin that one down. And then, I don't know, like, I feel like some of your novels have like sci-fi elements to them, but some politics and social issues. Like, I think that it's a good mix, and it's interesting because, yeah, but I can't, but I would say several of your novels are definitely historical fiction, for sure.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're set in different historical periods from the one I'm living in. So in that sense, they're historical. The question is, you know, if something is historic, you know, if it's historical, but it also includes elements that of things that didn't actually happen, does that make it not quite historical or whatever? You know.
It just makes it like, honestly, the pure genre of it is if it's not like a autobiographical or biographical account of somebody's life as it specifically happened, then the pure American Library Association definition of it is just historical fiction. And historical fiction is a very broad category. Of course, there's subgenres within historical fiction, but to me, just with the most ease, like, I would just call those novels historical fiction, because that's a big category that people have a lot of interest in. And of course, there's subcategories and subgenres, but I don't think we need to like pin it down precisely. Maybe let the readers decide how they, you know, feel about it, and if they want to, you know, that can happen too.
Right. So Captain Corelli's Mandolin, and I'll admit I haven't read very much of it. I'm just onto page 9, so obviously I've got a lot more to read in it. But it appears to be set during about the same period as Our Lady of Kaifeng, but it's on an island in Greece. And so they're under Italian, apparently, the Italians got them. And, you know, it's during World War II, so it's the Axis powers that have them. And so there's this Captain Corelli, which I haven't even gotten to, but apparently he's somebody in the Italian army that is stationed on that island as part of their occupation of it.
Oh, interesting. Huh. That sounds, I mean, it sounds like an interesting book. Right now, some people, they read like 20 books a week. I honestly, I don't always have time to just sit down and read a book. Like, I guess I'm trying to fathom how people like can just read, like they just read so many books. It's like a to-do list for them, where like, and I used to read a lot more, but I was working on other things less. So when I have free time, I like to work on my blogs or, you know, my YouTube channel. But I've read a little bit of All the Light We Cannot See, about to page 80. And that's actually kind of, everybody had recommended it to me for the longest time. And I thought, oh, I wasn't going to like it. Like, I don't know. It just didn't sound interesting to me. And I will admit, like, the first 50 pages, they're kind of slow going because it's about Werner, a German boy who's an orphan. It's kind of just his life. Nothing real exciting's happening. And then you have Mary Laure. She's a blind girl living in Paris. Her father works at the Louvre, and he's the key keeper. Like, he's the locksmith. He knows all the keys for the complex. And it just is kind of slow going at first. But then it gets more interesting because Mary Laure is learning how to read Braille. Her father teaches her how to read Braille, but she's primarily self-taught. And she also goes to all the different botanists and different researchers and she learns how to, like, different people at the museum teach her about different subjects. And then she's self-taught reading Braille, and she's reading 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and several different Jules Verne novels, I believe. And somehow Werner and Mary Laure are supposed to meet later in life, not much later because this is right before World War II. But the book is really interesting when Werner, he's about 8 years old. He's very intelligent, even though he's an orphan. He goes scavenging through junk pits, basically, because they're poor. They're an orphanage, like a small little orphanage run by this French lady, Frau Elena. She's from Alsace-Lorraine, so she tries to later on conceal her identity because being French is not, it's verboten with the Nazis. But anyway, he brings little things home, like any kind of food that might be still edible or any like items he can find in these little junk piles. They live in mining country. So one day he finds a smashed radio and he feels like he knows how to put it together, even though he's 8 years old. So he takes the radio home, he untwines all the wires, and he learns how to put it together. And this begins his journey of, he learns how to fix other people's radios. And I'm to the part of the book that's really interesting where a Nazi soldier comes to their house and they're really scared because after this point, Werner's 13 and his sister's about 12, and she's listening to illicit radio programs on the radio that they fixed. And you're not supposed to be listening to international radio broadcasts. And he's afraid that they're going to apprehend them because they're listening to all these radio broadcasts. And he takes Werner to this house with a Nazi captain and his wife. And he just notices for the first time this wife has flowers in her hair. Her legs are shaved. She's just reading a magazine, like so much luxury in this house, like that he's never seen. And there's this Philco American radio and they tell him, can you fix it? So he spends about 1 minute like trying to figure out the wires and he somehow fixes it and nobody else could fix it. So they give him 75 marks and they give him cake, and he's never had this beautiful buttercream cake with cream. It's not allowed at that time because of rationing, and plus he's poor, so he's never seen these things. And the Nazi captain's beginning to speak to him about how he could send him to a special school to learn engineering and, basically be the shining star of the Nazi program. But it's interesting because you can tell right away Werner wants to kind of not get in trouble, but he doesn't really believe in what the Nazis believe because from a young age, him and his sister were listening to these radio programs for abroad, so they kind of know a little bit more of what's going on outside the country. So it's an interesting story so far.
Oh, okay. And they're going to meet the blind girl and
Werner. Somehow they meet later on in the story, but see, this is the problem. Like, I wish I read books really quickly. Like, I used to make it my goal to just read a book all the time, but lately I'm working on things, so like I haven't gotten to that part of the book. It's a 500-page novel, and I guess I could, if I was so inclined to just sit there and read it, I could finish it real quick, but I'm only to about page 90. But, if you're interested in reading it, I think it's intriguing. It's kind of a slow going at the beginning, but it does pick up from, like, I would say about page 80 when they're getting a little bit older and the war is beginning to start. And we're at the part of the book where he's repairing the radio for the Nazi captain, and Mary Lauren, her father, are escaping Paris. And she's describing what it sounds like. It is very beautifully written, though, by the way. It's written from, like, the sensory sensations of a blind person because they can't see. So it's all the sensations and all the imaginations that she has of all the sounds around her. And she was pretty, she's pretty clever. Her father would build models for her to help her find her way home from the museum to their house every night. And it took her about a year, but even though she was blind, she was able to use all the sensations, sounds to guide them from the museum to their house each night. So even though she's blind, she still has a very keen sense of direction, and she can comprehend different sounds. And I just love the descriptions in the book. It's very beautifully written. So it's better than I thought it would be. But if you're looking for like an action-packed Clive Cussler type book, which isn't really my thing anyway, you might not like it. Like, I think all the action people, they're not gonna like this as much because it does deal with younger people, and some people don't want to read about, I guess, people coming of age or the Holocaust. So it depends on if you're interested in this kind of story, but I like it so far.
Well, good. Yeah. I think that a lot of times people classify books into genres, not really in the with regard to the time period during which they are set, but also with regard to the way they are written. So you describe this book as being very sensual, being based on the senses and being written beautifully. Yeah.
And I would, even though it's technically historical fiction, it's hard to like pin it down because there are many subgenres within it. But I'm not really interested in pinning a book down myself. I just am interested in reading a book. And I used to read a lot of books, by the way. But if I want to read a book, I'm not so obsessed with like, what's its genre? Where does it fit? I just want to know, is the story interesting to me or can I learn something from reading it? Like those are really my two objectives with the book, because I don't really care about those other categories. I know that for marketing, yes, that's important. But for me personally, I just don't care, I guess.
Well, I'm the same way, but that's the problem. If I have to get into marketing, then I have to start caring.
No, you should definitely care, like for marketing purposes. Yes. And for YouTube, I know myself, that's probably why I didn't always do so well with YouTube videos, because I didn't research things. And I've started to recently realize, we can kind of look and see what people are searching for, by the way. We can do that. And that can kind of give us an idea and help us when we title a video. You know what I'm saying? Like that is something that we can utilize into our benefit.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, some people will start with the thumbnail, and some people, when they're getting a book ready for publication, will start with the book's cover. So I want to show you this cover. I hope I can show it so that it shows up for you. Can you see it? Really?
Yeah, I do see it. I can see it. It looks very like a Greek kind of Mediterranean setting. That's what it reminds me of right off the bat.
Right. So also I'm thinking that maybe this is the kind of book cover that I should have been using, book cover design.
Well, it depends. You can you can always redo covers, by the way, and they do that all the time. You've noticed, like different books, like the covers change, right? Like
yes,
different reprintings. So if you decide later that, I personally think your Theodosia books, I wouldn't touch the covers of those. I really like them. And for Our Lady of Kaifeng, I think the second one, it really works. And I kind of like the first one too, because it's part of the story. Like I don't think that the cover, I don't know. I think the covers explain a lot of the story. Personally,
yeah.
I've liked the covers of your books.
Well, thank you. But possibly this also tells you something about the genre. And I don't know. I'm still trying to get a handle on what it is that one needs to do in order to market this stuff.
I think what it comes down to, well, I've been talking to someone too. He has published things himself, or I think he's self-published. He doesn't even have a small press like you. And his books are actually they sound pretty interesting. Like he writes historical fiction, but he's kind of frustrated right now because he decided he was finally going to approach an agent. And they said that they would get back to him, and they're incredibly unprofessional, Aya, because they told him in 6 weeks they would give him some sort of response. And he didn't receive any response from them. And I feel like, I don't know, like it seems like right now in the marketing world, like it used to be back in the day, it just seemed like you could get through to an agent a little bit more, but it seems like now it's like the way to break through into this market, it's almost like you have to have some sort of agent that's like really promoting you, and then you still have to promote yourself. It just seems like it's a little bit harder because there's just more books now and more competition all the time. It almost seems like you have to have an agent that's doing a lot of your bidding, and then you still have to do your own bidding, and you still have to do your own marketing. And by the way, even some of the big authors, they still do book giveaways, and they still promote books on the blogs. Like when they write, because they might have one book that's really big, like Lisa C, for instance, she's had a couple books that were bestsellers, but it seems like now with her later books, like she's doing a lot of promotion, and her agents like going in and posting on Goodreads saying, oh, she's going to do a giveaway. It just seems like they're always doing some sort of PR push all the time. So
well, I think they probably always did. I think the difference is that right now, all the old publications, like the New York Times and all the places where they used to review books are actually being read less by ordinary people. So that's why they're having to compete with those who are marketing on the internet.
Yeah, that's probably part of it. But I also feel like you just have more people wanting to break into the publishing world. Like everybody, like you've already written your books, like you've already published them, but all the time there's more people, and it just seems like, of course you can break in, but I think to be a bestseller, it's an interesting combination of things. And I remember with the person who wrote Michael Blake, the person who wrote Dances with Wolves, like it first started out as a novel, and Kevin Costner liked it, but he told him that he thought the novel might do better if he wrote it as a screenplay, and then he could premiere the novel around the time that the movie was going to come out. And he basically made it lucky because Kevin Costner somehow came across his novel, which is historical fiction, of course. And that seems to be what worked in his favor. It seems like you're in the right place at the right time with somebody who has some sort of push, unless you just keep publicizing yourself on YouTube. Like, I think there are people that can break through on their own too, but it's just more tricky than if you know somebody in the publishing world or know somebody in Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? You need somebody to make one of your books into a movie, is kind of what I'm thinking.
Okay, well, that would be nice, but usually, traditionally, a book had to have a wide following before it ever got to be a movie. So, for instance, The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand was a very popular book. And you haven't read that one, have you?
No, I thought about it, but I'm not sure if I'm going to read The Fountainhead or not. I don't know.
Okay. Because that's one where, in the case of Ayn Rand, genre is not really clear to me either. I mean, she's obviously writing didactic fiction.
Yeah.
She has a goal. She has philosophy. She's not just writing the story about an architect. Even though it's grounded and it's set in the same period, really just somewhere between the two world wars, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought of it as historical, so I never thought of it of exactly when it
it's
would
more
be.
didactic fiction, right? Because it's more of a political ideology. Or what is The Fountainhead exactly?
It's a novel about an architect, and he has an ideology about architecture that it should be based on function, and you shouldn't just like have a column here and a column there. The column isn't even holding anything up. So he has an artistic vision about form and function going together. But guess what? Hitler's architect believed in exactly the same philosophy. So this was something that was going around in the 20s and 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
It was a philosophy of architecture. But beyond that, this particular architect set in the United States, Howard Rourke, is such an idealist that he quits architecture school when they want to force him to design buildings that are not according to his philosophy.
Oh. Wow.
He goes and works, and he starts his own business. And every time somebody offers him a job, if they want him to design a building that he doesn't want to design because it's not aesthetically pleasing to him, he turns down the offer.
Interesting.
And Of course, that's not all that's going on there. There's another architect, Peter Keating, who was a classmate of his. He's kind of the opposite. He will do whatever people pay him to do.
Yeah, because he just wants to make money. He doesn't have a moral philosophy. He just cares about money, which is kind of sad, but that's human society.
Well, some people are like this and some people are like that.
Yeah, some people aren't, but there are a lot of people who are. So it's interesting because they're like the two dichotomies. Like you have the people that have like a strong philosophical value to what they want to do. This what it sounds like. It sounds like it's kind of a metaphor for human nature in a way. That's interesting.
Yeah, so then eventually Peter Keating, the guy who sells out, gets a contract to design low rent housing development.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not a very good architect. And there's an architectural problem that needs to be solved, a technical problem. So he goes to Howard Work and says, can you help me with this? And Howard Work says, okay, I will design it for you. And I don't need my name to be on it. This is not for my name, but I don't want anything to be changed in my design.
Okay.
So he designs the building and Peter Keating uses that design, but then the bigwigs, the politicians who are involved in that low rent housing development, they decide they want to add curlicues to the design and, make it look more like what they think is pleasing, which is it makes the design ugly, but it's still using the physical design that he built,
But they put like a facade on the outside of it kind of thing.
Yeah. So he blows up the building.
Oh, wow.
Because
okay, maybe I do want to read this. It sounds more interesting than I thought. I didn't know that.
Now he doesn't kill anybody, he doesn't hurt anybody.
No. But just the two, like what's going on, it sounds like there's a lot going on in the story. I just never thought it was about this. That's interesting.
Well, there's also a love story and stuff like that. I just gave you bare bones of what it's about.
Okay.
It's not a short novel, but it's a lot shorter than Atlas Shrugged, which is a lot more ideological. So when Ayn Rand came out with this book, a lot of people were excited about it. Not just people who believed in the free market, but people who were interested in architecture too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And artists of various sorts were attracted to this book.
Oh, so it had a strong following. See, that's a good way though, I guess. If you can get a strong following, that's another wonderful way to get your book to
and of course there were some sex scenes and stuff that at that time were considered pretty racy. Today probably they wouldn't be, but at that time that was
that time period, because people just didn't write. Well, some people did. Margaret Mitchell did, but most people didn't always include scenes like that in books, for general population.
Right. So, but looking back on it, I don't know what genre that is. If you didn't know that Ayn Rand was an objectivist, if you didn't know her philosophy, what would you think the genre of that book is?
Okay, like how would I place it? I would say it's like somebody. It would be really hard for me to say, but it might be about ideological purity and caring about principles and about having a moral compass, like in a more secular kind of way, like not a religious sense, but in that you love, like whatever it be, whether it be arts, whether it be, I don't know, building, whether it be like teaching, like you have a certain philosophy and you don't want to deviate from that philosophy just to make money. You would forego certain opportunities because you are so dedicated. Well, here's an example. I guess I could kind of trying to think. There's some actors that are like that. Some people don't know that certain actors won't be in certain movies. Like their movies have to just. Daniel Day-Lewis, he's actually one of those actors. He will only do he will only do a movie if it's so beautifully written and well constructed. I haven't seen all the movies he was in, but I hear The Last of the Mohicans was very good. And I love The Age of Innocence. It was a very well written, it's based on Edith Wharton's novel, but he will only do a movie if he believes in the characters and the storyline. He played a character in The Bounty. Like he only will be in movies that he can be 100% invested in. So he's foregone many roles, by the way, that were offered to him back in the 90s when he was a big name. He declined roles, and nobody did that back then, by the way. Like Mel Gibson, he would do anything. And here's a parallel. Mel Gibson and Daniel Day-Lewis, they both were in The Bounty. That was both one of their first roles. Like, okay, yes, Mel Gibson did Mad Max, but The Bounty was one of their bigger first roles. And you can just kind of see one would do any role. But Daniel Day-Lewis, he was very picky. Like he has a philosophy about acting. Like the storyline has to be great. And I think he also plays the piano. He's also a musician on the side. Like he forgoes making money if he doesn't believe in a certain role. So there are people like that. So I guess ideologically pure, moral, secular morality, I guess I could say. Would that be how you would classify the Fountainhead?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly how I see it. And I kind of like that philosophy. I'm not an objectivist, but I have my own philosophy. I call it commercial chastity. And I'd like to share with you just part of an article from the Inverted A Horn, which I wrote, Commercial Chastity. Hold on.
I did try to share the article, and I wasn't not the article, the video, but I'm having a problem with this second phone.
Oh, yeah. No, this is way back when we used to put out a newsletter. It was on paper. It wasn't online at all. And I continued my father's newsletter for a while after he died.
Oh.
And so this one it's from June of 2008, and it's called The Restatement of Commercial Chastity. And I'll just read you a little bit from the beginning.
Sure, definitely. I want to hear it.
Okay, so Commercial Chastity restated. The world would be a better place if we each did what we want instead of what we think is prudent in view of what others want. So that's just a very short synopsis of the whole thing.
Yes, it sounds, I like that. Like if we could just pursue the things that we want to work on, rather than be like, oh, well, my parents want me to go to medical school, but I really would rather be an artist, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. And so I start out, I am a free market proponent. I believe individuals have the right to choose what they do. I also think we all gain when each person is allowed to exercise free choice. However, I do not believe that if free market principles were firmly adhered to, all our problems would go away. Commercial chastity deals with ethical problems that arise under a free choice economy. I do not propose to enforce commercial chastity, as it is impossible to do so. Any attempt in that direction would be counterproductive. So, talking about the Fountainhead, by the way, the Fountainhead is a story in which government intervention is at a minimum. Mm-hmm. And it's really about the moral dilemma of the people, even in a free economy.
Yeah, wow.
Because, later books by Ayn Rand are all about how government destroys everything. But that one wasn't really about that.
Nice. Interesting to see the differentiation and kind of how her work evolves over time.
Yes. So this is the second paragraph. Commercial chastity, like other philosophies, suggests that making certain choices and avoiding others will tend to make our own life and that of others happier. It takes into account that the choices individuals make lead collectively to a reduction of choice for their compatriots. Not all of life is a zero-sum game, and free enterprise gives great scope to those parts that aren't. Nevertheless, anything that has directly to do with one's position in society is in fact a zero-sum game because there are a finite number of players and a corresponding number of positions.
Wow.
So once all the other citizens of the United States have cast their vote for president, there is no point for the last one to even bother. His vote is worthless. The same is true about many economic choices in the free market, and it affects such important issues as what products are sold, what foods are eaten, what books get published, what jobs are available, what children are born, and who gets to have sex with whom. So all of that is determined. I mean, you can make a choice. You can say, I won't do this or I won't do that, but you can't make a choice that somebody else is going to choose you or choose to publish your book or choose
Definitely.
to employ you.
That's definitely true.
Yeah. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but anyway, it deals with some of those issues that were also dealt with by the Fountainhead.
I have a thought. Have you thought about relaunching this newsletter? And you do videos where you share the newsletter, and then people who don't really read it can at least listen to it. And then maybe, I don't know, you do the newsletter as a blog post? I don't know.
I'm thinking of making it public. You see, we never charged any money for the newsletter. It was free. We didn't make any money off of it. I'm thinking that eventually maybe we'll take some of the articles from the newsletter, turn them into a book of essays. And, and we could publish the book of essays. Maybe we could get somebody like Kelly Clear to read it on Audible. And at the same time, we could try to spread the word about it on YouTube and elsewhere on blogs and blogs.
Nice. I think, yes, I think you need to do so, because that's a pretty interesting article, and it makes me think, wow, like, that's too bad that people don't know more about it. I think maybe there's a lot of people right now grappling with that exact issue right now.
I think they are. And, you know, Ayn Rand was not the only person who wrote about this. I don't know if you've read any of J.D. Salinger. Have you?
You know, I haven't. People love Salinger, and I never really understood why. It's not something that I ever read.
I did not like Catcher in the Rye that much. Everybody raves about that one. I didn't think it was that great. But he wrote another one that I did like a lot, and it was called Franny and Zooey.
Oh, okay.
It's about a girl who comes home from college, and she's kind of having a nervous breakdown. Mm-hmm. And it isn't because anything bad has happened to her. You know, she has a boyfriend and she's a good student and everything is fine, except that she realizes that she doesn't respect other people.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because she feels they're all sellouts.
Yeah, I see. It's kind of that commercial chastity thing. Like, people are selling out to, oh, I don't really believe in this, but hey, I can make some money doing this. And she has like some sort of moral value where she wouldn't take on certain projects. Is that, or a career path?
Right, exactly. And in her case, she has kind of a religious tendency. So she decides that she's going to dedicate herself to praying incessantly because she read some book about that. And of course, I don't take that part very seriously, but it's part of the story. So it's about how her brother helps her out of this sort of phase that she's going through by letting her find a way to accept other people, even though she might feel that they are sellouts, because really it's very hard to live in the world if you're looking down on everybody, right?
No, it kind of is. And I think this is actually more of a common theme than we think. Like, I was never a really big fan of that grungy movie, Reality Bites, but the whole theory behind it is you have these college graduates. They don't want to sell out to just make X amount of dollars. And Winona Ryder's character often becomes unemployed because she just doesn't agree with decisions that her boss like imposes upon her. So she would rather be unemployed than working. And then I guess one of her friends, like, I guess he would rather read books, like English literature books, and work a low wage job than sell out and have a high power career. So it's a common theme, but this sounds like Salinger addresses it in more of a philosophical way.
Yeah, it's actually one of those books where some people don't like it because they feel nothing is happening because the girl is just on the couch in her parents' apartment and not doing much, and then different people come in and talk to her about the problem. But I'm not saying that's the only kind of book I like to read, but it did have an effect on me when I did read it.
I'll have to be honest with you. All the people that want action books, I'm like, that's not my thing. Like, I like stories where there's dialogue or somebody's thinking about something or they're grappling with a social issue. Like, it doesn't have to be some fast-paced book for me. So I might actually be interested in reading that. Like, maybe I'll pick it up.
Okay.
It sounds kind of fascinating. And I've been wanting to read some more of the classics, and it sounds like kind of a classic that's not as well known, perhaps. Like, maybe everybody knows about Catcher in the Rye, but they don't know about, you said it's Zooey and
Franny and Zooey.
Franny and Zooey. Okay.
Yeah. Or maybe the way you pronounce it is Zooey, so you can call it Franny and Zooey.
Okay, so maybe I want to. It sounds interesting. Like, it sounds like it's a hidden gem kind of classic story. Like, everybody raves about one, but maybe the other is a little bit better.
Yeah. I think this one is better because it's not as it doesn't look down on people as much. I mean, it deals with the problem without necessarily just talking about how annoying people are,
Yeah, exactly. I thought about writing a novel, but every time I start to think about writing one, I'm like, I don't know who's going to read that. Like, I'll start writing a story and I'm like, I don't really know. Like, if that's interesting, because I'm told every time I wrote something that was boring. So
I don't know. I wouldn't let anybody else tell you not to write. Here's what I think. You have to be driven to write it yourself. And even if you think that nobody else will like it, if you like it enough, that's good enough. And then you will write it. In my case, when I wrote my novels, I was sure that I had something really significant to say, and I wanted so much to say it. And later on, it turned out not that many people wanted to hear it, but I still had to say it,
Of course, yes, definitely. Like, you have a message, like, you have a very strong message to share, like something that you believe in, like that article about moral chastity. So maybe you need to resurrect the news article letter as a collection of essays. That might be interesting.
Well, I think first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to the Libertarian Party, the LNC, and the officers.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, because I have enough copies already printed out, and otherwise they'd be moldering in my house, and I'd end up throwing them out.
Oh yeah. Well, you have them, so you might as well utilize them. This is the good thing about your house cleaning project. You're finding all these old things that you can work on.
Right. So do you have anything else that you would like to share with our viewers before we sign off? Because we've been on for about an hour.
Okay. So at the moment, I guess I'm just going to say, like, well, this is my philosophy on reading, because I feel like people make it a contest. Like, I still like to read, but I feel like right now, when it comes to reading, I'm like, if I have a time, I want to write a blog post and edit that. And I'm not like fixated on reading X number of books, because I sometimes ask people and it kind of bothers me, Aya. They read all these books, but then I'm like, do you remember if that didn't happen? And they don't remember that, or they barely remember the book.
Yeah.
Or they're like, I think I've read this already, and they have to go home and read it to figure out. I'm like, I don't feel like it's a contest. Like, I would just want to read something because I truly enjoy it, or I want to learn something from it or absorb it. I don't want to. And also, too, I feel like with reading, like, what if you are, like, let's say, editing a novel like you were writing, or you start editing these dialogue projects? That's a form of reading, too. Like, I don't know. I just don't want to make it a contest to read X number of books. I think I'd rather read a book I could really enjoy and get involved in, you know?
Yes. And I don't understand the people who will say, I read that book, but I don't remember any of the details. Well, if you don't remember any of the details in the book that you read, what good is it that you read it? I mean, what did it do for you, right?
I think they just want to say, oh, I read this amount of books. And like I told this guy, he's like, how many books do you read in a year? And I'm like, it's not a contest. Like, I'm not trying to say I read this number of books in a year. I'm trying to read books that I actually like, you know, or can absorb and remember. And I feel like sometimes if I'm distracted, I have to go back and reread a part, because I always felt like if I read a book, like I felt like I had to do the author justice by absorbing that book fully, no matter what it was. And I found out a lot of people don't feel like that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. And yeah, that's a topic we could talk about maybe next week when you have time, is about people's memory and how people dump certain memories.
Yeah, we could, but just to let you know, I'm off all weekend, so we can do it tomorrow too, unless you're busy. So it's up to you.
Oh, okay, that would be great. So
Yeah.
we'll say a goodbye today,
Okay.
and I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good, Aya. Have a nice afternoon.
You too, Julia.
Bye.
Bye.